What's up, you sweaty nerds and greasy degenerates? So Dr. Ratio recently had a light cone revealed. I did go over what the light cone does and everything, but I didn't compare it to other light cones. So let's briefly go over what his light cone does again, and then compare it to the other light cones we already have in the game. Let's dive in. Alright, so this is Dr. Ratio's new signature light cone. This is what it looks like. And if you guys didn't know this, Dr. Ratio is currently advertising for his new special Lewd 2024 calendar. So if you haven't pre-registered yet, go pre-register for Dr. Ratio's new special Lewd 2024 calendar and get 10% off now. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what the signature light cone actually does. It says here, if you subscribe to the channel right now, you'll actually get improved luck on your next 50/50. Wow, that sounds pretty good. Let's keep reading. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel now. Anyways, it increases the wearer's crit damage by 20%. For every debuff on the enemy target, the wearer's crit damage dealt against this target increases by 8%, stacking up to 3 times. When using their ultimate to attack the enemy target, the wearer receives the Disputation effect, which increases damage dealt by 36% and enables their follow-up attacks to ignore 24% of the target's defense. This effect lasts for 2 turns. So, this is very clearly a very good light cone. You get a ton of crit damage off of it, based on the first effect and the second effect, and on the next 2 effects, you'll get increased damage, and you'll get 24% defense shred. Oh, it lasts for 2 turns. Who cares? He'll get his ultimate back soon enough, trust me, okay? This is easily Dr. Ratio's best in slot light cone, which is to be expected. It's also probably going to be Topaz's signature, or no, Topaz's best in slot light cone, potentially. I haven't run the numbers there. I haven't simulated that myself, but this looks like a very, very good light cone for Dr. Ratio and Topaz because of the follow-up synergies, crit damage, etc., defense shred. You get the picture. This thing does it all, okay? So let's compare this to some of the other light cones we already have in the game right now, because I personally don't believe there's any such thing as a must-pull in this game. So let's go ahead and take a look at what else we got, because not everybody's going to be able to get this light cone. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about some of the light cones we already have in the game right now, such as the Elephant in the Room, Bruising in the Stellar Sea, which we will go over in just a moment. It's the light cone most players are going to be using because of its accessibility, but I want to go over 2 other light cones first before we get into that, and that is the other 2 signature light cones available right now. This is Worrisome Blissful. This is Topaz's light cone. This is a very, very good option for Dr. Ratio. It's probably going to be his best in slot. Actually, it is his best in slot outside of his literal signature light cone, but there's a problem with this light cone. If you have this light cone, you probably have Topaz. If you have Topaz, you're probably running Topaz with Dr. Ratio, right? Because the synergies between the 2 of them are so good. Like, if you have that, then you're probably going to be using this on your Topaz because it's already built around the light cone. So, sure, you could maybe swap light cones around, put this on your Dr. Ratio and whatnot, but I just thought that that was an important thing to point out, because although this is a very good light cone, you're probably going to be putting this on your Topaz instead. You could switch it around, you could change things up, but it does mean you have to now potentially switch up your Topaz build to now fit certain criteria to actually reach certain like crit thresholds, etc., etc. So I just wanted to point that out. Very good light cone, crit rate, follow-up damage. When allies hit enemy targets under the tame state, each tame stack increases the crit damage dealt. So you get increased crit damage, increased follow-up, increased crit rate. You don't need me to tell you, this is clearly the best light cone for Dr. Ratio besides his signature light cone. However, you might not be able to use it because it might be on a different character. Let's go ahead and take care of the other signature, which also has a bit of a problem too for a different reason. In the Night is Seele's signature light cone, increases the wearer's crit rate. But this is the important part here. While the wearer is in battle, for every 10 speed that exceeds 100, the damage of the wearer's basic attack and skill is increased by 6%, and the crit damage of their ultimate is increased by 12%. This effect can stack up to 6 times. So, let's break this down really quick. So there are 6 different stacks, each one of them 10 speed. So you need to have 160 speed on your Dr. Ratio to actually fully use the benefits of this light cone. And only if you have 160 speed are you getting all the benefits of the light cone. And only at 160 speed will it be able to outperform something like cruising in the Stellar Sea at S5. So just something to point out there, that unless you are using this with a super fast Doctor ratio, it's not going to work out very well for you. And there's a little bit of a reason why you might not have 160 speed, because the hunt path has changed. All of these characters beforehand, except for Topaz, were all hunt path characters, single target damage, and they all really love having a lot of speed. Don't get me wrong, Topaz and Nami, Doctor ratio, they're going to want speed, a lot of speed, but they're not going to need 160 speed. Jesus Christ, not even Seele has 160 speed. She gives herself speed in the middle of battle. That's how she gets to such a high speed stat without too much investment into speed. So you're probably not going to have 160 speed on your Doctor ratio. So unfortunately, Seele's signature light cone falls off as well, just for a different reason than Topaz's light cone. Because he's a follow-up character. He doesn't need as much speed as another hunt path character would. Topaz and Nami and Doctor ratio are exceptions to this because the hunt path meta has changed. The hunt path meta is leaning towards follow-up synergy right now and is sort of leaving some of the speed behind in order to lean more into follow-up synergy. So I just wanted to point that out, that these two signatures are very good, but they're not probably going to be the light cone that you use for a number of reasons. So cruising in the Stellar Sea is going to be the light cone used most by players because every single player in the game can get their hands on this. Every single player in the game can take it to Super Imposition 5, and it only takes a matter of time. That's it. That's all it takes to get it is time. It increases the wearer's crit rate by 16% and increases their crit rate against enemies with HP less than or equal to 50% by an extra 16%. When the wearer defeats an enemy, their attack is increased by 40% for 2 turns. So this static 16% crit rate makes it easier to build the character so that you can focus in more on crit damage rather than needing to have crit rate, for example. And you get this extra bonus as well, which is easy to trigger because all you have to do is defeat one enemy and it triggers for 2 turns. And depending on how long your 2 turns are, you're going to have several follow-up attacks that occur in the middle of those 2 turns. So just something to think about there, that this 40% is going to be active for a lot more actual physical attacks than you might be thinking of. So definitely a very good light cone for Doctor ratio. It performs better than a lot of people probably think it will. This is not his best in slot light cone, like I've said already. It is just a very good one for him and what most players are probably going to use because it's probably their best option, because more than likely they don't have the speed for this. More than likely this is on a different character. So you probably are going to be using Cruising the Stellar Sea or Doctor Ratio's signature light cone in most cases. I'm making a generalized most players type of situation here, okay? Now, let's go ahead and talk about Only Silence Remains because these two go hand in hand in my opinion. Cruising the Stellar Sea is very similar to Only Silence Remains, except it's sort of the opposite. Only Silence Remains at Super Imposition 5. By the way, not everybody is going to have this at Super Imposition 5, and unless it's at Super Imposition 5, it will not compete with Cruising in the Stellar Sea. Increases the wearer's attack by 32%, and if there are 2 or fewer enemies on the field, it increases the crit rate by 24%. So this is like the opposite of Cruising in the Stellar Sea. It gives you crit value, and it gives you attack, but there's a condition on the attack for Cruising in the Stellar Sea, which is easy to meet, by the way. It's easy to get the bonus from Cruising the Stellar Sea. This has static attack and a condition for the crit rate instead. My opinion is that the condition for this is slightly harder to keep active than the condition for Cruising in the Stellar Sea. However, if you don't have Cruising in the Stellar Sea and you happen to have Only Silence Remains, this can definitely be a stepping stone light cone for you until you get something like Cruising in the Stellar Sea or perhaps a signature light cone that works better. Now let's move forward to Swordplay. Swordplay, in my opinion, is always an interesting light cone for me. I think it's a very, very good light cone, but it's circumstantial once again. So if it only works if you are attacking the same enemy over and over and over again. But you don't necessarily want to be sitting there attacking the same enemy over and over and over again. You want to defeat an enemy and then move on. Defeat an enemy and then move on. So for each time the wearer hits the same target, damage dealt increases by 16%, stacking up to 5 times. Even at Superimposition 1, this gets really, really powerful the more times you attack the same enemy. But like I said, it's like if the moment you enter battle, you're going to like probably have to immediately start attacking the main boss enemy, and then who's taking care of the mobs? Are you running hyper carry with only 1 DPS? Are your supports going to be able to take care of the mobs, or are you going to have to fight the mobs with your DPS too? Because the second you do that, this falls off. Unless you take care of them first. But if you take care of them first, are you going to have enough damage output to one-shot the mobs? Because this won't take any effect until they're gone. Right? So something to think about. Unless you have a really, really good doctor ratio, very, very well built, and you can one-shot mobs before you start attacking the main boss, Swordplay does not work as well as a lot of players might think. I love this light cone. I think it's great. I think it's a little bit more niche, and it works very, very well under the right circumstances. So if you have those correct circumstances for this to work well, very, very much consider Swordplay. Very good light cone. Just I want people to be aware that they might not even realize this isn't doing anything until they start attacking the main boss enemy in most cases. Now, Rivers of Blood here. Rivers of Blood? Rivers flow in spring. Oh my god. I just referenced a sword from Elden Ring by accident. So this light cone sucks. After entering battle, it increases the wearer's speed by 12% and damage by 24%. And when the wearer takes damage, this effect will disappear. Let's read that again. When the wearer takes damage, this effect will disappear. Yeah, that sucks. And it will come back after the next turn, but that sucks. If you get hit one time, say goodbye to your buff, bro. Okay, so like, I mean, characters, right? Let's take a look at who you have to run. You have to run Gepard. You have to run Gepard, or you have to run March 7th if you're using that light cone. Because if you can't shield the character, it's going to take damage. Even with Fu Xuan, just because the damage is reduced doesn't mean it doesn't happen. If they take damage, you will lose the buff. So it requires you to have to use March 7th or Gepard, or you're just never going to have your buff active, bro. It's going to suck ass. So definitely don't use Rivers of Blood. Obviously, I'm kidding. Don't use this light cone. It sucks. So that's actually pretty much all the light cones. Let's go ahead and talk about Return to Darkness, because just real quick, because some people have asked me about this. Dude, it has crit rate, and that's pretty much it. After you get a crit hit, you will get opportunity to take a buff off of the enemy, which is good, but do you want that on your DPS? Or do you want that on somebody else? Right? I don't think this is that great of a light cone, even at Superimposition 5, because here's the thing. If you just defeat the enemy with something more powerful, who cares about whether the enemy has a buff? Just kill him, bro. In game. But let's go ahead and move on. Subscribe for more. Just doesn't have the juice that we're looking for out of a light cone, because you might not even have this at S5. Although this does get pretty good when you have it at S5. This second part's kind of weird. This effect increases by an extra 48% when the wearer's energy reaches its max. So this pretty much says, like, don't use your ult and this will work better. But then you can't use your ult. And with Dr. Ratio, you need to be able to use your ult because he needs the follow-up synergies and the buff he gets from it. So it just, you don't want to use this light cone. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't have the juice. Okay, and Return to Darkness, this doesn't have the juice. Okay, this doesn't have the juice we're looking for, okay? Cruising the Stellar Sea, this has the juice. Okay, Only Silence Remains, this has the juice, baby. In the Night, it's got the juice, but like under certain conditions, you might not even want to be able to use. Worrisome Blissful, this really has the juice. Okay, this got some juice, baby. But it, if you're running this, you probably have Topaz. So you might not use it on Dr. Ratio. Just something to consider. Swordplay's got the juice, but sometimes the juice squeezer doesn't work properly because you have to attack one enemy and only that one enemy for it to properly work. So, as you may have already known, Dr. Ratio's signature light cone is the best. Then it goes to Worrisome Blissful. This is the second best, but you might not be using this. And because of that, that means that cruising in the Stellar Sea will probably be the best light cone to use because everybody can get their hands on it and take it to S5. In the Night's not bad either. It competes with cruising in the Stellar Sea, but you probably don't want to build that high of speed on the character because you'll probably lose out on either attack percent or, you know what I mean, like crit damage, crit rate, other important substats if you have to build it for super high speed. So in the Night falls off. And believe it or not, only Silence Remains is probably better than in the Night. I'm not even joking about that. I usually hate seeing this light cone because usually I'm trying to pull for a character and I end up seeing this instead of the 4-star that I want. And I get pissed off every time I see it, but it's actually not a bad light cone, especially for someone like Dr. Ratio. Swordplay's also got the juice. And that's pretty much all. That's pretty much it. I wouldn't even look at the other stuff, okay? So, if you enjoyed this video, thought it was entertaining or helpful in any way, shape, or form, please consider a like and subscribe, because if you do, Dr. Ratio might ratio you in the comments. Peace out.